So, it's part 2 of the Srad engine disassembly, and like I said, there's a surprise. What you can see here is a cylinder from a carburetor model, and this, can you see it? Yeah, you can see it. This is a cylinder from a fuel injection model. They look different, which they did in 1998 to make the cylinder stronger and prevent it from warping, which it had issues with. And this one being a carburetor cylinder. So I think this engine has been open like before, I think more than once, and it got a new set of cylinders, which is nice. Apparently those are, like you can see, those are from a carbureted model, but give or take, I think it's not that big of a deal which one you use. The thing is, I would stick with the corresponding pistons. So if you use a carburetor model cylinder, I would stick with the corresponding pistons because they changed the piston form a bit. They look more or less the same, they will fit, but I think it's best to get them like from the same year or so. Nevertheless, we continue to dismantle this piece of junk. The next thing would be to take out. Now this is, here we go, this chain guard. Put it to the side. Here's the other one. This one is fixed, so we leave it there. We can just lift it up later. So there are not that many screws we have to undo. Those are being done, those three. Can you see them? Yeah, you can see them over here, where the water comes up from the pump into the head. And those two. And I think that's it. Otherwise they rely on the head bolts clamping it together. So we continue with those ones. They all should be 10 mil. So we take the small ratchet. Yeah, and start undoing them. Now be aware that there can be water in there. And by the way, these works can all be done by without the engine being taken out of the bike. With the Srad you can access everything till the lower end of the cylinder without taking the engine out. So it's a fairly easy bike to work on, which is good because you need to work on them a lot. So take those out. Of course, if you have an engine hoist and got the time and the space, it's always nicer to get the engine out, which is not a big deal on those bikes either. Because anyway, if you do those kinds of work, you have to take the radiator out, the exhaust of course, and all of that, drain the water, drain the oil. And since you're doing that, it's like 6 bolts more and you have the engine out, and then it's a lot easier to work on it. So we do that. Here we go. Let's see if this is crusted as well. Yes, it is. Looks horrid. The fuck. Okay. Engine bolts. So we need a spanner for those ones. ascending spanner. There we go. That's nice. So sometimes the normal spanner doesn't fit, so you can use the one. Yeah, this spanner. Hopefully we don't strip it. Yeah. But as you can see, this engine was open before, and even with the apparently 70,000 kilometers on it, those come off quite easy. So it's been redone completely. Which is a nice thing, but we have to do it again. So this is off, those two are off, those are off. I think that's it. So we can start rocking this cylinder a bit together. Be aware that, of course, the piston rings on the piston will clamp against it, so it sticks a bit. And of course there's still water in there, so I try not to make a mess. Here we go. Yeah. Nice. Cylinder. So we put this to the side for now. And get a look at what we have here. So we take out this. Of course, this being the cylinder base gasket. Looks a bit like the one for the head, but less complicated. Put this to the side as well. And then we take a look at the pistons. I will do a little inspection video later, but for now, let's bring you in. So what I'm trying to look for are skid marks on the sides of the pistons, which is known as piston slab, because those can tend to work against the cylinder sides and cause damage. But this looks fine. I think it looks fine on all of them. Yes, they look really good. I think if we clean those, we maybe can reuse them, because apparently those are pistons from a fuel injection model, which is kind of a hack job in this engine. So the next thing would be, this can stay there, chain can stay. The next thing would be taking out the pistons, which is done quite easy, but I'll show you. Now we have a nice view of our pistons being here. You can't see it that well because the lighting isn't that good. But you have our piston, we have wrist pins in there, in our bone rod, this pin. And there's a little wire spring in here on both sides, actually, on each piston. And what we do now is we take a screwdriver, like flathead, a little one, get in there and try to work this spring out, so we can push out our wrist pin from the other side to get it out, and then remove the piston, which what we need to do here, because we need to clean those, inspect those, and then maybe reuse them or use another set. So we'll see which one will fit the best. Another good thing you might want to do before you start taking out some little things is get some cloth or rag or anything in there. Okay, now this is our piston, and you might see this little piece of shit here, which is like a small hinge we can get in, but this screwdriver is obviously still too big, so we need a smaller one. Maybe we can use those pliers as well. So we've got a set of pliers here. See if those are pointy enough to get in there. Nope, they are not. Oh. Here we go. I found a small one. So this should be capable of getting, yes. So now I'm under the spring. I put my thumb on it to prevent it from going springing sprongy all over the place. Now I try to work it out of there. Yes. Here we go. They look like that. You see? Small little wet clip. It's important when you do a rebuild like this, get new ones of those. They're quite cheap, you can order them from Suzuki or whatever, but they lose tension over time. That's a really important bit of the engine. So now we should be able to push the wrist pin out from the other side. So from here, apply pressure on the pin, and it should come out. This one's apparently a bit sticky. So maybe we can give it a little tappy, tap. The Canadian routine. Nope. So another thing we could do, because this is somehow stuck on this side, but you can easily push it to the other side. Maybe I take the clip on this side out again, out as well, and try working it the other side. Here we go, other side out. Come on, son of a... Maybe a little more tapping. I don't know. Yeah. I'll back you off a bit so I can do this a bit better. So I just have this socket, which is the same size apparently, so I have a nice angle of attack. Here we go. Then this is what I did. I don't know if there's a better way to do it, or if this is even the appropriate approach. But I don't give a shit right now because I need to get those things out. So we tap it a bit more. Yeah. So now we have the piston out. Here is the piston with the wrist pin still sticking there. And our corner rod right here. So this is how we do this. And next is repeating the process 3 times to get the other ones out. Go in there with the screwdriver tip. And yes. Ouch. Here we go. I think circlip is the English word for those things. And this is stuck as well, so we need to get the hammer. And work this fucker out there. There we go. So as you can see on this side, there is this circlip still in there. So I just removed one side and then pushed the wrist pin out. So next we open this cover, which holds the starter assembly. Starter is located here, the small electric motor. And then we can crank the engine. The way Suzuki designed this is that you can open this one here, this cover here, with the hex key to crank the engine, because then you can access the crankshaft. But this thing is glued in like a motherfucker, and with all the engines we had, is you strip this hex right off because it's soft aluminum and it just doesn't work. But anyway, we give it a try. Because this saves a lot of work. Too small. Nice. Holy shit, it worked. First fucking time. So we have this cover here with a small O-ring and yeah. Where's the hammer? There it is. As you can see, it's not that damaged, but I wouldn't do it that often. So now there was something here. You can see here is a I think it's a 14 mil nut. So you put a socket on there and then you can crank the engine by hand. When you remove this tab over here, this one here, there's your TDC and BDC marking. So there should be a small notch on here somewhere, and you can align it with the notch in here, and then you can be certain that you have the engine on TDC or BDC or whatever. Of course, since this is a 4-cylinder engine, it's the same. TDC and BDC. You have always 2 pistons on TDC and 2 pistons on BDC. So it depends on which piston you rely. Anyway, we get a 14 mil nut socket on here. I think it's 14 mil. Yeah, it's 14 mil. You have to be careful with the pistonis, because they tend to lock up in here. There we go. So now those 2 are free, and you should always turn the engine clockwise, but doesn't really matter for this case. So I turn this a bit more up so you can see what's going on. So as you can, I hold these pistons here so they don't get stuck. As you turn the engine, all of this. Another ones we just did come up. Now those come up. And this is more or less TDC for those 2. So we leave it there. Move it in a bit. You can see what the fuck is actually going on. And again, our famous Srad rack. Just going in here so we don't lose any small bits and pieces in the crankcase. Yeah, it should be fine. So I would suggest we start with this one, then do the other one. So again, we take our small screwdriver, get in there and try to get the circlip out, which is quite easy now. Apparently. Yep. Number 1. And we do the other one right away. So I do the outer ones now, because I plan on reusing these pistons maybe if they are cleaned. And it's easier to get them back in like so, because then the thing is it gets a bit tricky later if you need to compress the piston rings and then slide the cylinder on top of them and then get the wrist pins in. And yeah, it's easier to have them on the outside, have the outside circlips taken out so you can push in the wrist pins from the outside, because otherwise those 2 will restrict each other, and of course you can't get the wrist pin in here when they're both lined up. So it's a good way to think of how to getting it back together while taking it apart. Oh, we had this one before, it was a pain, now it's a pain again. Fuck you, Mr. Circlip. You can push the circlips in the groove with the screwdriver. So now I try to work the other side. Maybe this one's a bit easier. But apparently they both suck. I better stop going crazy. Here we go. No! Son of... So now we need to push out the remaining wrist pins. Those are all stuck, which is not a good thing. When you assemble an engine or redo it, you have to be really precise about those things. And normally those wrist pins should easily slide on their holds. So I don't know if that's a bad sign or... I mean, they come out. It's just not that easy. So here we go, next piston. And of course, here we go, wrist pin. And of course the last one, since we removed this circlet, we have to push it out to the other side. This one's going smoother. Okay. So, last piston. And of course, last wrist pin. Put it there. So now we have all the pistons out. We have our con rods being smoothly gathered. Actually, this engine doesn't look that beaten up, so it's quite nice. Now, since this is all gone, you can take a look at the main gear. Of course, this is going to the clutch basket, but there's a little wear on it. Looks nice. Maybe this engine doesn't have that much mileage on it anyway. After all, yeah, there's somewhere inside the... Let me see if I can catch that. There's somewhere inside these con rods here. Not too bad. Okay, we leave it like that for now. Get another shot of that beautiful engine on its hoist. And of course, this being the frame, We will go later. Okay, thanks for watching.